And she was right. Do you think the cause of death was truly too much wine? Jinchi inquired. His lovely gaze was focused not on the consort but just over her shoulder on Maomao. There were a number of ways to die from drinking too much. Even Maomao, who enjoyed her alcohol, understood it could become a poison if one drank too much. Any medicine could be harmful if the dosage was too large. Chronic drinking could cause dysfunction of the liver. Drinking too much at one time could cause death immediately. In this case, that is what happened. There was an overabundance of drink at a party with friends. It was said that the victim had drunk quite a lot from a large jug. That certainly would kill you, Maomao remarked casually as they arrived at the guardhouse by the main gate. It was the same place she had met Lihaku. The room was still simple with only the barest furnishings, but today tea and snacks were provided. A brazier was lit to ward off the cold, but it was half as much as usual, Jinchi said. Gaeshun took something from a serving girl who came from outside the rear palace. She said nothing, only bowed her head and withdrew. Jinchi said frankly, I cannot bring myself to believe he died of drink. Not Kunan. Kunan was the name of the dead man. He had been a splendid warrior who drank wine by the jugful. Jinchi and Jayukai said he wasn't a half-bad person either. Gaeshun placed the object he had received from the serving girl on the table. It was a gourd flask. Gaeshun poured from it into a small drinking cup. What's this? Maomao asked. It is the same wine that was served at the party, Jinchi informed her. We took it from one of the other jugs that was present. The cup Kunan was drinking from had been overturned and all its contents spilled out, so we will never know if that jug had poison in it. After all, poison would be the next obvious culprit if it wasn't the wine itself that had killed him. Quite right. Jinchi obviously knew how unrealistic his hopes were, bringing Maomao this alcohol to examine. The fact that he did so anyway, that he clearly wanted closure on this matter, made her curious. Did he owe the dead man a favor? He just needs to turn that stupid charm back on, Maomao thought. Lately Jinchi had looked so much more childish to her, and she couldn't help it. It was actually easier for her when he huffed and puffed and ordered her around. Now she brought the wine to her lips and lapped at it gently with her tongue. Hello, what is this? The wine tasted both sweet and sour at once. It was as if the flavor had begun sweetly, and then someone added a pinch of salt. It is like cooking wine. A most unusual flavor, she commented, looking intently at Jinchi. Yes, Kunan preferred it this way. He had quite the sweet tooth. He enjoyed a sweet wine and would only take sweet snacks with it. Jinchi almost seemed in a rapture as he described the deceased. Kunan could be presented with the finest smoked meats or luxurious rock salt, but he wouldn't touch them, according to Jinchi. Way back when he used to enjoy more savory foods. Then one day, completely out of the blue, he reversed himself, so much so that almost all his meals became exclusively sweet. A hint of a smile, genuinely spontaneous it seemed, drifted across Jinchi's face. Sounds like he was flirting with diabetes, Maomao said, unsparingly presenting her opinion. Don't sully my memories with bleak reality, if you please, Jinchi said ruefully. So a man who likes savory foods suddenly prefers sweet ones instead, Maomao thought as she drained her cup and poured more alcohol from the gourd. She drank it down and repeated the process. Jinchi and Gaeshun were watching her closely, but she ignored them. When the gourd was about half empty, she finally spoke. The snacks served with the alcohol at this party. Was salt involved? Yes. Rock salt, mooncakes and cured meat were served. Would you like us to prepare some of the same for you? No, thank you. I will be finished drinking this by the time it is ready. If they were going to offer me snacks, I wish they had done it sooner. A good, salty meat would have complemented the wine perfectly. That's not exactly what I was thinking, Jinchi said, annoyed. Maomao poured herself more wine. She paid no heed to Jinchi's transparent disbelief that she was going to resume drinking. The chance for a tipple was such a rare one, outside the occasional mouthful she tasted for poison, and she was going to take advantage of it. Maomao drank the gourd dry to the last drop. She was tempted to let out a big, boozy whoop of satisfaction, but considering the presence of nobility, she decided to refrain. Do you have the actual jug Master Kunan was drinking from? Yes, although it is in pieces. That's fine, let me see it. Oh, also. There is something I would like you to check into for me, Maomao informed them. The next day, Jinchi summoned Maomao once again. They came to the same room as before. Jinchi's customary place of business seemed to be the office of the matron of the serving women. However, her quarters had been quite busy recently, with women coming and going. The offices of the other two service divisions were much the same. Perhaps it had something to do with the approaching end of the year. I knew it, Maomao thought as she reviewed the paper summarizing the results of the investigation she had requested. She looked at the piece of pottery that had also been brought to her. It sat on the wrapping cloth used to carry it. Whitish grains were stuck to the pottery. She picked up the shard and licked it. Are you sure it is safe to do that? Jinchi reached out as if he might stop her, but Maomao shook her head. It is not poisonous. There is not enough of it for that. Her words sounded important, but Jinchi and Gaeshan clearly looked puzzled. Maomao went over to the brazier with the paper wrapper that had held the report and started it burning. Then she held the shard of the jug near the flame. The color of the fire changed. Salt? Jinchi asked, peering at the flames. He had clearly learned his lesson from the last time she showed him this trick. That is right. It appears there was so much of it in this jug that even after the liquid evaporated, grains of it remained. There had been salt in the wine Maomao had tasted as well. This wasn't added during production. It was more like a snack, simply thrown into the wine. If the party attendees generally preferred savory flavors, then wine that was too sweet wouldn't suit them. Everyone knew how to dust salt around the rim of a cup, but to put the stuff directly into the wine, someone must have been very drunk or a complete culinary ignoramus. A pinch of salt was one thing and would have been fine. However, the jug Kunin had drunk from contained copious amounts of it. Salt is essential to human survival, but too much of it is toxic, Maomao said. In that respect, it was like wine. Too much wine at once could be fatal. When she considered how much wine Kunin had drunk and the amount of salt dissolved in it, it seemed a possible cause of death. But that doesn't make any sense, Jinchi said. No one could fail to notice they were drinking something that salty. I believe at least one person could, Maomao replied. She turned the report toward them. It contained details of Kunin's personal habits. You told me, Master Jinchi, that one day Master Kunin spontaneously went from preferring salty foods to preferring sweet ones, yes? Yes, that's right, Jinchi said. Wait, you can't mean yes. I think perhaps he stopped tasting saltiness. This man Kunin had been a capable bureaucrat, diligent and dedicated to his work. His self-control, which was almost stoicism, was clear even in the brief report. It said that after his wife and child died in a plague several years ago, he had dedicated his life to his work. Wine and sweet treats were his only indulgences. There are some illnesses that can take away a person's sense of taste. They are said to be caused by imbalances in diet or sometimes stress. The more straight-laced a person was, the more repressed their spirit could become, and the burden created by that condition could lead to illness. All right, who put the salt in the wine then? Maomao cocked her head. It is not my job to figure that out. Armed with the facts that the other jugs had been salted as well, and that Kunin was a very serious person, she suspected Jinchi could work out the rest. Not everyone liked a diligent worker. They might decide to play a little prank on him while he was drunk. When they saw he hadn't even noticed their joke, they might decide to lean into it until he did. Sometimes the alcohol takes over, so to speak, but would the perpetrators ever have expected this result? They were cowards, running away like they did. Maomao had pulled up short of spelling it all out, though she could have. She did not want to be the direct cause of someone's harsh punishment any more than anyone else. However, with all the clues she had given Jinchi, it was almost as if she had told him herself. Jinchi then spoke to Gaeshan, and Gaeshan left the room. Jinchi watched him go for a moment. Close observation showed a small tasseled ornament with an obsidian mounted on his belt. Was that a mourning emblem? And had he made it inconspicuous on purpose? My apologies. I appreciate your help, Jinchi said, turning his transcendent smile on her. Not at all. Maomao was very curious about the connection between Jinchi and Kunin, but she held back from prying. If it turned out to be something indecent, I might be sorry I asked. After all, one could never be certain who was related to whom and in what way. Instead, she tried a less loaded question. Was he really such an outstanding person? Indeed. He was quite good to me once when I was small. Jinchi did not elaborate, but he closed his eyes. He seemed to be thinking back into the distant past, and it made him look just like an ordinary young man. It was an effect Maomao rarely saw from his preternaturally beautiful face. Huh. I suppose he is human after all. It was too easy, with Jinchi's unearthly beauty, to forget that he was born of woman just like anyone else. It might have been easier to believe sometimes that he was the 1,000-year-old spirit of a peach. Recently, Maomao had increasingly found herself oddly unsure how to feel about this man Jinchi. After he stood silently for some moments, Jinchi seemed to recall something. He reached under the table and produced an object. A gourd, Maomao asked. He had come up with a gourd of substantial size. She could hear a splishing sound coming from inside the gourd. This isn't the same stuff as yesterday, he said. Then he handed the gourd to Maomao. It's yours as a thank you. She pulled out the stopper and caught the rich aroma of the spirits. Ah, just try to drink it discreetly. Thank you very much, Maomao said with uncommon earnestness. So he does know how to be thoughtful when he wants to be. Shortly thereafter, she was confronted with the saccharine face. She glanced at it reflexively. Yes, it was still the same eunuch. I can't say you look very grateful at the moment, Jinchi said. Is that so, sir? Well, perhaps you should worry less about my expression and more about the work you have to do now. For some reason, she thought she saw a tremor run through Jinchi. So she was right. He had shirked his business to come talk to her. It is one thing to have too much time on your hands, but to actively ignore your job. Perhaps you should go take care of it before the tasks pile up too much. Maomao conveniently ignored the fact that she hardly did any work herself. Jinchi blinked. For a second he looked pained. Then a thought seemed to occur to him. A nasty, mischievous grin came across his face. Oh, I am working quite diligently, he said. In what way, sir? Jinchi stroked his chin thoughtfully. One of the legal proposals that came across my desk suggested that to keep young people from drowning themselves in drink, there should be an age limit on the drinking of wine. Maomao looked at him, open-mouthed. It recommended drinking be forbidden before 21 years of age. His grin got even nastier. Master Jinchi, I beseech you not to pass such a law. I'm afraid it's not up to me alone, he said. His smile was like a blossoming flower as he observed the misery on Maomao's face. Her lip curled down. She did the only thing she could do and looked at him like an overturned beetle. Chapter 26. 2 sides to every story. Gaeshun placed a lacquered box on the desk and took a scroll from inside. The report you requested has finally arrived. Nearly 2 months had passed since Jinchi's instruction to find any serving woman who had sustained a burn. That took too long, Jinchi said, looking up sharply. My apologies. Gaeshun made no effort to add any excuse. It was a matter of principle with him not to do so. So who is she, sir? Surprisingly highly placed. He unrolled the scroll on Jinchi's desk. Fengeming of the Garnet Pavilion. She is chief lady-in-waiting to the pure consort. Jinchi let his chin rest on his hands, his eyes cold as he scanned the paper. Oh, young miss, come with me, won't you, please? When Maomao arrived to help with medical matters, this was the first thing out of the mouth of the layabout-ahem, the doctor. A eunuch stood nearby, apparently with a message. He had evidently come to summon the physician. What on earth has you so upset? Maomao asked, smelling trouble. The quack was practically quaking as he begged for her help, so she obliged and went with him. They soon found themselves at the guard post by the north gate. Several eunuchs were standing and looking at something. They were surrounded by a group of serving women. Maomao said, utterly calm in the face of what she found, we're lucky it's winter. A rush mat concealed a woman. Her face was bluish and pale. Her hair was stuck to her cheeks and face, and her lips were blue-black. Her spirit no longer resided in this world. The body was uncommonly neat for a drowning victim, but it was still not exactly pleasant to look at. It was a good thing it was a cold time of year. Typically the physician would inspect the corpse, but at present he was cowering behind Maomao like a little girl. A quack indeed. The dead woman had apparently been found that morning, floating in the outer moat. From her appearance it was clear she was a servant of the rear palace. That is why the quack doctor had been summoned. The business of the rear palace was to be taken care of by the inhabitants of the rear palace. Young lady, perhaps you could look at her for me, the doctor implored. His loach moustache quivered, but Maomao was unmoved. Who did he think she was? No, I couldn't. I have been instructed never to touch a dead body. What a strangely specific instruction. The needling comment came from an all too familiar, heavenly voice. The girls let out their now customary squeals. It was almost as if they were watching a stage show. Good day to you, Master Jinchi. It hardly seemed like a good day with a dead body lying right there. Maomao, as always, regarded the handsome youth, totally unimpressed. Gaoshan was behind him as usual. He was conducting his standard business of beseeching Maomao with his eyes to be courteous. Well, doctor, might we trouble you to take a proper look? Very well. The quack flushed and moved to examine the corpse without much conviction. First he trembled visibly as he pulled away the rush mat. This caused some of the assembled women to scream. The deceased was a tall woman who wore hard wooden clogs. One of the clogs had come off, revealing a bandaged foot. Her fingers were red, and her nails were cruelly damaged. Her uniform marked her as food service. You don't seem too bothered by this, Jinchi remarked to Maomao. I am used to it. The pleasure district might appear beautiful, but one step into its back alleys and hidden corners could reveal a world of lawlessness. It was not uncommon to discover the body of a young woman, raped, beaten, and left for dead. It was easy to see the women of the pleasure district as being trapped in a cage, but by the same token, one could say they were protected from its dangers. Brothels treated their courtesans as merchandise, yes. And one wanted merchandise to last a long time and not be damaged. I'll be very interested in your perspective later. Certainly, sir. She doubted she could be of much help, but she didn't deny him. It would have been impolite. It must have been so cold. When the doctor finished his examination, Maomao delicately covered the body with the mat once again. It probably did not make any difference now. Maomao found herself escorted into the guard post by the central gate. The matron's office must have been busy again. She thought Jinchi did not want to have this conversation in the Jade Pavilion. It was not appropriate for a child to overhear. She thought it was time he had his own place. Maomao nodded politely to the eunuch standing before the door. Jinchi informed her that the guards believed it was suicide. The woman had climbed onto the wall and then flung herself into the moat. Her outfit suggested she was one of the lower-ranking women in food service. She had been accounted for at work until yesterday. This meant she had died sometime the previous night. I do not know whether it was suicide, Maomao said. I do know that she didn't do it alone. And how is that? Jinchi asked, looking regal as he sat in his chair. He was like a different person from the childish youth he sometimes showed her. Because there was no ladder by the wall, that's true enough. Do you think it would be possible to scale that wall with a grappling hook? I very much doubt it. No, he asked. It was truly frustrating dealing with him. She wanted to tell him off for asking questions he already knew the answers to. But Gaoshan was watching, so she refrained. There is a way to reach the top without any tools, but I do not believe that woman could have managed it. Is there? What way would that be? After the commotion surrounding the ghost of Princess Fayu, Maomao had racked her brains trying to understand how the woman had gotten up on the outer wall. It wasn't a place one simply clambered up to. When Maomao got a question into her head, she gnawed at it until she had the answer. So she had spent a great deal of time contemplating the walls. What she had discovered was a series of projections at one corner where the walls met. A brick jutted out slightly here and there. These could conceivably serve as footholds. This would be true if one were a talented dancer like Princess Fayu. Maomao speculated that the builders had used the protruding bricks when they were constructing the wall. It would be difficult for most women, especially one who had her feet bound. Sometimes a girl's feet were wrapped in bandages and shoved into tiny wooden shoes. The bones were crushed, and her feet were then bound with strips of cloth. They were constrained in wooden clogs. All of this was done because of a standard. According to this standard, the smaller a foot was, the more beautiful it was. Not every woman was subject to the practice, but one sometimes saw it in the rear palace. You are suggesting it was homicide. I am not suggesting anything. But I do believe she was alive when she fell into the moat. The red fingertips implied the woman had scratched desperately at the walls around the moat. Down there in the cold water. Maomao did not want to think about it. Couldn't you have a closer look? There was the honeyed smile, impossible to refuse. Yet unfortunately refuse she must. She couldn't do what she couldn't do. A master apothecary instructed me never to touch a dead body. For what reason? Is it simply a fear of impurity? Jinchi seemed to suggest that apothecaries often interacted with the sick and injured. He added that contact with corpses could hardly be unusual for them. Maomao responded by stating the reason clearly. She said, because human beings can also become medicinal ingredients. Her father had once said, no telling how far your curiosity goes.